Yeah. What's good?
What's good?
We're back
Damn.
at it again.
So yeah, I guess this one is more frequent, although we'll release this on Sunday, but we were just chilling and talking and decided let's just start recording because it was a good conversation. We were talking about how the GOAT, Naval, has a this thing he writes about and speaks about, which is basically like you want to set an out like an aspirational hourly rate in the context of wanting to get wealthy. And he says the reason you set this before you get wealthy is so that you can use it as a filter for how to spend your time. So let's say like you want to be, I don't know, a millionaire of some, a decamillionaire, you would set your hourly rate to like $5,000 an hour. So any work that's cheaper than $5,000 an hour, you would automate or pay someone to do it, blah, blah, blah. Obviously expensive to put that into practice, but Marco was telling a story from Dan Bilzerian's book. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah. So from Dan's book, it's called The Setup, and he talks about how like when he was young, his dad was like very wealthy, like hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe, and like the mom was like, teach your son to make his bed in the morning, and Dan, when he was a kid, was like, no way, like dad doesn't make his bed, like why should I have to make my bed? And the dad's like, yeah, like my time is worth like $10,000 an hour, and we can hire someone for $20 an hour. So no shot am I teaching him this lesson, and it's going to cost me like over $9,000. Obviously, that's like the most wealthy thing you can say, but like I think yeah, I agree. The principle of valuing your time very highly and like only spending it on highly like valuable
Hmm.
tasks is like a surefire way to do well.
Yeah, and like I think all those like psychology, self-help books, they have, I think, a lot of gold in them, even if they're like packaged for an audience who may or may not take advantage of like the wisdom in those books. But one of the things is like act as if you have arrived before you've arrived. So it's like money is a
Sure.
lagging sort of
Indicator.
result of, yeah, it's like a lagging result of how you live your life. And I think it's a pretty good idea. Definitely not something I do well enough, but I think a cool like heuristic to put into place. Like
Sure. Yeah, I think that's
what?
like that goes for a lot of parts of life. I feel like even at a 9 to 5 job, like you don't get promoted until you're doing work at the level above. Like, I mean, maybe there are times it's not the case, but for the most part, like you need to be crushing it in order to get promoted. And I
Mhm.
feel like the same thing outside of work, where like when you're doing high value work, the money will eventually fall.
Facts. So we don't have anything prepared. So maybe we could recreate the episode that got GG'd where
Good
we were
question.
asking each other questions. It actually came out pretty well, but
Sure.
it got
I know I got
GG'd.
clapped. I have
So
something to talk about pre questions there.
all right, hit it.
Um, so yes, the other day we had a question that was like, if you had to make $1 million by the end of the year, what would you do? And we were
Hmm.
answering, and one of mine was like, oh, like an e-commerce business. So I don't know, it sat with me, and I was thinking about it more, and I've been like passively like thinking about things that I was like, okay, what could I do to like maybe not $1 million, I mean maybe, but I was like, what could I do to pay my rent every month clear? Like what could I do on the side that would passively or like semi passively like allow me to do that? And I have an idea that I feel pretty good about, and I think I'm gonna spend 2 months trying to get it off the ground and like see how far I can get, or like at least get to the point where I can like I'm not going to reflect on it until I hit that 2 point mark. I mean 2 month
Hmm.
mark. Um,
Do you want to keep it a secret
no,
what it
no. I
is, or
think
do you want to say
I
it?
think it's pure execution, and I know all of our fans, are you know dying to take over one of these business ideas. Um, but yeah, so the idea is you like matcha, obviously, right? And you've had yerba mate before.
Hmm.
So the idea is to make a matcha powder form of yerba mate. So like basically powdered form of yerba mate that you can have as a drink. Provide it exists. It's like I two parts of this. One, I was like, okay, I don't know if this exists, and I did like a quick search, and I was like, okay, I don't really see anything. I was like, let me try to make this. So I had like green tea leaves, so I tried to make my own matcha, see if I could like just make it at home. Obviously, this would not be production level. So I did that, and I was like, okay, let me like look harder, and I found it online that there is like a few places that do sell it. And I ordered it, and it came today, and I've tried it, and it's really nice. It's like nice and mellow. It's not as like pungent as matcha in terms of caffeine or flavor, but it's like a nice.
You mean mate?
Mate, but
yeah, you've been saying matcha.
No, I'm saying it was matcha. Like I made my own matcha, and then like, but today I got the ground form of mate, yerba mate.
Okay.
So my plan is to find a supplier. I'm going to try to get some packaging, probably spend a few $1,000s to get, a first like batch set up, and then, just market it. I think maybe start either follow the path of like mud water / what's that thing called?
Athletic Greens.
No. I mean, that too, but
Liquid IV.
No, Four Sigmatic. And then
okay.
Or maybe even just go around shops in like cafes in New York and get people to sample it, try it. But yeah, I think it's something that like has a good enough where it's like small enough where it's not like a big opportunity, but it's good like passive, like something on the side that could potentially have some legs to it. So that I think I'm gonna try to have as my project for now.
I like that. That's cool.
Thoughts?
That's dope. Let me I want to try the prototype. Let me be your taste tester.
Definitely. It's on like, so Benny was over today and he tried it and he liked it quite a bit. It's definitely very mild.
You've already tried to make your own.
I made my own, but I was trying to see if I could.
You made your own mate powder?
I made my own matcha powder.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see if it was even possible if I went to go buy yerba mate, like the leaf, that I could make at home, if I could even make a powdered form of it. And I'll probably do a blog post on it because it was pretty fun to make it. But then I looked even harder and I found pre-made yerba mate powder.
Okay.
And I have it and I've tried it. So I know it exists. And it's honestly, you just need I was looking up more how like matcha's made, and you just need like, there's certain types of mills that make powder. And you just need your mate supplier. So, And I have a name. I'm going to call it
very cool.
Marco's Mate.
Okay.
So
I like that.
We'll see. Like that. My plan is to like commit to it and like really give it a fair shake, and like just even if it gets off the ground, it fails on its face. Like I know I want to get to the point where like I feel comfortable like getting something off the ground, and then like next time, if I have a better idea or something bigger, then I know I can like get to that point where I can launch it. And that's my plan, is to at least get to that point and ideally have it be something that like pays my rent, basically, at least. Are
you thinking about it from like a systems thinking kind of way? Like even if you make no profit off of it, it's still going to be beneficial and worth the investment because of what you'll learn in the process?
That's like, I find like once you do something, you like, I don't know, almost in like climbing, you know how they lock into these like carabiners at different like levels. I feel like once you get to a certain level of like, okay, like I know I can like launch a product, like that's like a new rung in the carabiner to like lock into. So I feel like once I get to that level, I know like even if I like can't go further than that, I know at least like I'm able to get to that point, and like when another idea comes up, I know I'll feel very comfortable getting to that point again.
Fire.
So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Probably not the most ideal use of skills, but I think it'll be a cool project, and it's something I think is dope, and like I like the product, so I think it'll be a fun journey.
I would love if in the processes of this you became like the beastest caffeine addict ever.
Mate actually has very little caffeine. Actually, it just has like a lot of like extras that give you energy, but it actually has like, it's like milder than a cup of tea, pretty much.
Damn. I like mate. I remember we used to get those cans from the cellar, the yerba mate cans.
Mad antioxidants. Like it's like ridiculous how much it's like
Yeah.
multiples of 2, like 10 times more, 20 times more.
Huberman drinks mate every day. He's also Argentinian.
Yeah, I mean, it's like like Carson went to South America and I like Argentina, and he was like every single person I know drinks this like every morning.
Yo,
And it's
we
just
should take a
fire.
trip to Argentina.
Yeah.
It would be fire to like learn Spanish for 6 months and then take a trip to South America.
Sure. I mean, it'd be dope to learn in South America. Like,
yeah, no, that's true too.
But yeah, so that's the game plan. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe like Huberman will be like, who knows what's going to come of it. This could go to shit. Probabilistically, like probably it's path, but I don't know. I think it'll be a cool experiment, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. So, but yeah, today was a good checkpoint where I'm like, I like this. I like the product enough where I would like invest the time. Like if it came and tastes like brown shit.
Based on what you tried, you're aiming to do something better or just like another option?
I just don't think
higher
it's like
production.
I just don't think like anyone knows / would think to drink powdered like matcha version of yerba mate, like powdered yerba mate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has a lot of benefits. And I think like when people drink yerba mate, I feel like they're like, oh, I'm a fan. So.
You should call it yerba mate. Like matcha.
I know, but then I was like, it gets confusing and people think it's like mixed together. And then like if someone doesn't want, so I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. But yeah, that's my game plan at the moment.
That's cool. I like that.
So
word.
We'll definitely send. So
I mean, I'll be back in New York.
Sure.
Soon. Maybe like a month's time I'll be back.
What else has been any updates from work? Any interesting projects? Any interesting insights while
bro, I spent a fucking week just responding and responding to it like comments on my pull request for a fucking like creating 3 new tables where they were all simple tables to make, but there was like different
indexes, data
engineers
types.
Yeah, different engineers were like, no, change this, bro. I'm telling you, it took me a week because it's also like I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, I don't know how to do this, oh, I don't know. But then there comes a certain point where like if you're like if they wanted a certain way, you kind of like the roadblock is just communication with like the engineers who are like designing the system, you know?
Sure.
So it was just a lot of like, hey, you have 30 seconds to talk about this. Yeah, in 5 hours.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, I'm busy all day. Like, and then you get on the phone with them for 10 seconds. It's like, okay, a whole day for 10 seconds
to do that.
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. Is like tough to find that line of where, like, is something a technical opinion or is it like a technical, like, actually required change? Because that is a fine, not even that fine of a line, but it's definitely a thing that comes up where like someone has a specific way they want to do it versus like there are multiple ways to do it.
Facts.
Yeah, it takes mad long. I like it. Honestly, I think it's a great thing when PRs get shredded up like earlier on because then you really like learn a ton and like I don't know, you learn to ask the right questions, you learn to look at things, and yeah, it just comes with battle scars. So.
It's just freaking me out. I think in the economic context we're in, even though there's no reason to freak out yet at my company, but like people talk about, I think the worst sort of like doomsday recession people are like, oh, everyone's going to get laid off, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And that's out of your control, like to a certain, like you just got to like do your best job and shit. But
yeah. And we touched base, like we talked about that for a bit. I mean, I think you just got to be like, I think Warren Buffett's thing where it's like, you have to like, if you provide value, no matter if people paying in shells or Bitcoin or cat, like, if you are a valuable person, there will always be a place for you to go. And I find comfort in that.
Me too, for sure.
Fuck.
I've been reading, let's see, Beginning of Infinity has started and I'm about like 10% in. And I think like, I'm starting to get it, but I think it's one of those things where you got to read the whole book. I'm definitely not at the point yet where Naval is like, this is, top book of the decade,
Sure.
but I'm pushing through. It is interesting to me. But I think like, and we touched on this last episode, there is a certain like caliber of person that I follow. Like when they give a book recommendation and they say that they fucking loved it, I'm gonna like give them the benefit of the
Invest the
doubt
time,
and
yeah.
like just go to the end.
Yeah.
And there are some like where I haven't been able to go all the way through, but it's still on my list. Like Tim recommended a book called Little Big, like about
Oh,
a year ago, which is it's kind of like a fantasy novel.
yeah. I remember.
And I made it like 20% in. And I don't know. It wasn't hooking for me, but I will get back to it at some point. But
Sure.
for the most part, like books that Naval has recommended, like all the Nassim books, all of which I've read and have loved.
Yeah.
He gives good recommendations. So I'm pretty stoked on that.
I like the thing you said about the Patrick Collinson thing. Collison.
It's like Collinson without the N. Yeah.
Yeah. Where he had like those top elite books. There was one about like kids and technology. I want to read that. I think that will probably be the book I read after this.
What are you reading right now? The Elephant book still?
I finished that. I'm gonna start this book tonight because I just finished the other book. And I've been running around a little bit. But the book that I'm gonna read now is called, and this was I think a Naval recommendation, Wind, Sand and Stars.
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read that. It's like a short, I don't know, a few 100-page book. So
what is it?
It's something about to do with like a pilot. And I honestly I literally haven't even started yet, but my plan is to start it later tonight. So.
Facts.
Kindle.
Yeah, when Nassim says that since he was 13, he's read between 30 and 60 hours a week, bro. Like how? Like when you actually do the math,
that's like
on
literally a
those
full-time
numbers,
job.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like
That means
5 to
he's
10
literally
hours a day.
spending, yeah,
5 to 10 hours
I mean,
a day.
probably like, I mean, I get like after work, what do you have, like 8-10 hours, right? And then like,
But you also got to cook. You got to
Yeah.
cook. You got to like work out. If you have a girlfriend, you got to spend time with her. Like if you have friends, you got to see them. I mean, it's just like there's just not enough time, bro. And then I think about it, like Collison said, and I think Nassim has the same attitude. Like there are so many things in the world that I don't know that I ought to know. Like that's worth knowing. You know, because I think there's that phase shift that happens when you do get into reading, or I mean, reading is really just another word for learning. Like when you get into learning things, you realize like, I mean, we have phase shift moments where you learn something and you cannot see the world the same way. And I think there's another phase shift where you realize like there are more like quality books that you can read in your life that'll provide that experience then there is time to actually read in your life.
Sure.
Which is just fucked up if you think about it. Like
Sure.
Like the upper limit of like human ignorance is like just so low still.
Fact. And that's only covering the stuff that like we know already. Like it's not even covering the unknown. Yeah. It's like I love that there's like a YouTube channel that has like music and it's like the best song you haven't heard yet, or your favorite song you haven't heard yet, or something like that. And I feel like,
oh wow, have you sent that to me before?
I don't know, but it's all like EDM, like college music, kind of honestly. But like, I think for music, it's like that, like for a like that'd be a good book site, right? Is like or a store, like your favorite book you haven't read yet, like.
Yeah. The thing is, okay, so today my girlfriend and I were just like kind of fucking around and watching like architecture digest videos. You know those videos where like celebrities
they'll go into
like show you their house,
Kevin Hart's apartment.
Yeah. And I was just saying to her, like, I feel like everyone has the same fucking taste in everything these days. Whether it's clothing, you know, the way they design their house. Facts. Paul Graham, right? Not Mark Andreessen says that. But I think like when I put together my list of books I've read for my blog, one, it makes you realize that you haven't read you haven't read as many books as you thought you've read when you put it like as an actual list. At least that was my experience. But two, um, I feel like my list is just completely sourced from like Twitter and podcasts
I
and
know,
like
I know.
every single fucking person who puts like 100 books to read so you can be a million, like that kind of shit. Like
Sure,
my
sure.
list is just those, and it kind of made me pissed. I'm like, damn,
I know.
like
I had the
it's
same thing
straight
too.
up
Yeah,
like I'm not. It's not even unique or original. Like it's like I'm
sure.
taking like. And then you find ways to like, oh, but I really read it. Like these people didn't really read it. They just like,
I've thought about that before. Like I was thinking, I was like, there was some random ass book I was reading, and I was like, I wonder if up to my point in reading like this far, like all these books, if anyone has like complete overlap with what I've read. And I was like, I feel like this book is so random that like I'd 100% be out of a ring. Like no one would have ever read every book that I've read. Um,
yeah.
and I think about that
I mean, I
often,
have a
like how,
few
like,
like that.
yeah, yeah. But I'm just like, I was just thinking, yeah, like what is my like Venn diagram look like with other people? And I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. Like if you source your books well, like I think it's a good, like, it's not a bad thing to have a lot of overlap. And like, there are only like, there's a reason some books are read very like frequently. Like, yes, they're like very good or like distill like great information. Like,
Mhm.
so, but yeah, I agree. Or it's like, fuck, I have a lot of overlap with you know, a large community. Yeah.
That would be an interesting like data visualization project. But the thing is, like Naval said this on the first appearance that he had on Tim, where it's like there's books that I'm not going to admit to other people that I've read. You know, like um, not even because they're like there's a lot of reasons you wouldn't like. Naval was like, yeah, like I read the fucking um the Nazi manifesto with Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, like I wouldn't tell people at a dinner party that I read that book, and it's not because I agree with it.
Just sends a message like,
It just I just want to know what's in it. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I
like
actually was
what
considering
people
reading it
responding
out of
to.
that 100, a
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But I think again about that like that thing that Nassim talks about scale, like applied to like social contexts. And in this sense, like scale is not necessarily just the size of the group, but it's almost like the distance that a person is from you in terms of like social barriers. So like
Sure.
if you and I are chilling, there's very little we can't say to each other. But then like you meet someone new, obviously there's different rules, right? And I think when you're like at outer scales, I think when you talk about things that you've read and consumed, people almost instinctively interpret that as like an endorsement for that thing, you
Sure.
know? So
Like the Dan Bilzerian
like
book or like, yeah,
yeah, you know? Like whereas like I remember when I first started Twitter, I had in my bio, I don't know if I have it now, but I had in my bio like a retweet is not an endorsement. Like to remind people, you know, because
sure,
like what do you think a retweet is when you don't know someone? Like, yo,
sure.
look at this shit. Like it's outwards, but sometimes you're just retweeting to like
Let
remind
people see
yourself
it. Exactly.
6 months from now, like, oh, this was something cool. Now I want to read about this.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, it's a weird concept. Like,
That's a fun. Yeah. I found that with like, I read the Emily Ratajkowski book and like came up in conversation with a girlfriend's friend and like, oh, like you're reading her book. Is that like a into her like type of thing? And I'm like, I mean, yes, but like, but like realistically, like it's just fascinating. Like her book is like whatever you can read it in a few hours, and it's like you get to see what it's like to be like the most popular girl like in the world. You know, arguably like one of the top, right? And like you get to just
mm,
see through their lens and like what their life has like led to, and like the power dynamics and all the things that they experience, like in a few hours. Like it's like why wouldn't you want to read something like that, regardless if you're in like it's just fascinating to read about. Um, so I don't know. I agree. We're like it gets this false interpretation if you like read a book. I there's something I think about pretty frequently too. Is I think it was like a post or tweet or something like that, and it was like, how predictable are your actions and thoughts? like based on if someone had like the 5 main data point, like where do you live, what do you do, like I don't know, like a few main points, and I was like, that is pretty fire, because I feel like if you are easily bucketed, like that's probably not a good sign that like I don't know, not a good sign of what you're consuming and doing with your time.
I've had a similar thought, I think, just in different language. Like I didn't ask the question the same way, but the underlying thought is like, how many people are having the same thoughts as me, you know? Um, and what would that Venn diagram look like? And I just think like it's gotta be like for a like if you're a dude who listened to Tim Ferriss podcast in college, like there's very few and like liked it as much as me, which there are gonna be a lot of guys like that. And I mean people like that. There's gotta be a lot of overlap to like what the shit we think about. I do think there are like I think the uniqueness of people comes in like the intersections of like the different interests we have. So like I love like, you know, the whole Twitter, books, podcasts, like world. But also like I play music and you know, that's like one dimension. I'm also like, you know, my parents are immigrants and I'm bilingual and that's another like, you know, sort of vector of personality. But bro, there's so many people alive that there's probably like a million people just like me.
Sure, sure. I mean, if it's 1 in 1 billion, there's literally like 8 people, right? Like identical Taimur as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I have not met any though.
Thank God.
Thanks. But if you think about like your friends,
oh,
you
I know
wanna
what I was gonna say.
you remember? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I love like there was something that came up the other day that I like.
Did you send it to me on Twitter?
No. It was like someone I was like reading about or met or something, and it was like I love when someone is just like deeply passionate about something like that's completely irrelevant. Like it'd be like woodworking or like the
You
most
mean
random
irrelevant as if like different from what you care about? Is that what
just
you
like
mean?
like super passionate about something that like is completely irrelevant to like anything. Like I just love that, just because it's like this person actually like,
You and I were talking about that on the
oh,
podcast, bro.
I know, I know,
Because
I
remember
know
I
what it was.
talked about the Uber driver?
No. This was my girlfriend's cousin, like very like plays sports, like lives like a classic like jock kind of life in many ways, but then like loves Paramore. And like I just thought that was dope, because I would just like, you'd expect him to love like Future or something like that, and like loves this type of music. And I'm like, I just love
Yeah.
that like I don't know. I just feel like it shows like independent thinking and like having a character, like having a
Yeah.
personality. So I don't know. I just was like, I really appreciate that shit, and I feel like it's a green flag. Like,
Yeah, you know what's something interesting I thought as you said that? In high school, I was so like not like like a cool kid. Like I had, you know, I had friends and I was happy, but I wasn't like a cool kid, you know? Um and I'm not now either, but like back then and I what I like I almost there's actually something very freeing about experiencing that because like what I've observed now of like I don't know, like becoming closer friends and interacting with people who were cool kids in high school and like also or like they think the popular person kind of way. Like I've observed that a lot of these people in my local experience don't have like a sense of freedom to just like what they like. Like it's almost like liking something is like a performance, you know?
sure.
And I
Like you have
remember in
to
high
come
school,
to a
like,
certain standard, and like what you like is like a signal of like
yeah,
your social whatever.
yeah. And in high school, like, I can only imagine that if I had felt that pressure, so many of the things that have like been meaningful for me are just not like I don't know if I would have had the strength of character at 13 years old to like
Sure.
just like what I like, you know?
Sure.
Um And something I observed too is like, I don't know. I always think like they're like icons that cool people look up to, whether it's like, oh, they're wealthy, they're successful. But none of these people are going to mention Elon, who's like the fucking most successful man who's ever lived, you know? So it's almost like there's a filter between like the reality of something and then like the signal of something, you know?
Expand on that further.
Like, for example, I have one friend who they would say, like, they would like love to listen to the All In podcast, which I think I've told you about it, because, you know, oh my God, like I just want to listen to like the way that these very influential, wealthy people speak, you know?
Sure.
And then I'm like, okay, but what do you think about Elon? And he's like, oh, like I don't like Elon that much. Like he's kind of like a dork. And I'm like the criteria that you're providing for liking these people is like a lot of it is like net worth or like influence in business.
Sure.
Elon's net worth is like almost
Yeah.
400x the sum of these four people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's
And
crazy. And it's
yeah,
like
and then you talk to,
first principle reason behind liking someone, like, oh, someone's like intelligent, has these things, versus like, oh, they're like XYZ CEO or
yeah,
partner or whatever.
yeah. And I don't know, like the first time, and I don't like to admit this, but age 27 was okay, I'm tying this back to like the cool conversation. Age 27 was the first time I like felt honestly like insecure about like admitting to people I like the music that I like, which I never felt before. All because like over the last summer, I met someone in New York when I was like, they were like, oh, what's your favorite? And like a cool person, like, oh, what's your favorite band? I was like, oh, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And they were like, bro, that's pretty lame. Like, they're not cool. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? You know?
Sure. Sure.
And I was just, I don't know.
I think if you own it, people like
Yeah,
respect
you
that
got to
a lot.
own it.
But some people are like, put like, I don't know, pussy. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, but I'm just like, what does it mean though? Like, I just don't get it. And I know like some things in life you never want to get too literal and like, what does it mean? But I'm like, I don't care what music someone likes, you know, like I don't view that as a signal to judge someone per se. I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but not like,
I think it just depends. Like some people use that question as like, if you don't really like care about music that much, it's probably just like a social signal. Like, oh, are you like this is like elephant in the brain shit, but it's like I'm not really looking to. I don't really care what type of music you listen to. It's just like a test of like, do you know what's cool and what's not cool, and like then I
or
can
like you're
gauge
almost
your
like,
social standing.
mhm,
But then like if you really like music, then it changes and it's like, oh, like this person like is into
mhm,
music and like whatever. Like
mhm. Music is also one of those weird things where like, I think, I don't know, I always, because I'm a musician and I had a very influential teacher in high school who very much a genius human being and his like philosophy of music and life has been super like downloaded into me. And I like have this idea of like I'm interested mostly in what people in the field think about like people in their field. So like it's way more hype to me when like an engineer is like, yo, Elon Musk is the fucking man because of
sure,
his
sure.
engineering
Like
skill.
the we've talked like the engineer's engineer, the musician's musician,
Exactly.
like exactly.
Yeah. So, but music is one of these weird things, like where everyone has this extremely strong opinion, and like everyone feels like their opinion is on equal footing, and in a sense, it is because it is all subjective. But there is like there are musicians that are just way more popular among musicians than non-musicians, and
Sure,
vice versa. And
sure.
that's very like interesting. We've had this talk before, but that's
Yeah.
very interesting to me.
Fuck. Fuck. Um, your point before about like standing for what you like or like being vocal about the things you like, even if like it may not be perceived well. Like I was watching this documentary called The Alpinist. Have you heard of it? It's of that guy Marc LeClerc.
Yeah, Marc LeClerc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
This
nuts,
guy's
bro.
like doofus, right? Like King
Yeah.
Doofus. Like, but then becomes this insane climber, does all these crazy. Do you know like what ultimately happens? Like, is
No, I
like
turned off the movie. I got bored.
I honestly like I had the same thing. I hated it, and once I got past like, I ended up just I've been like this like weird, just into like climbing things lately. But um, I ended up starting it back up after let's say like 20 minutes into it because the first 20 minutes were kind of bland, and then it got like really interesting when he like goes and just does these crazy things. Like he climbed like one of the hardest mountains in the world solo, just didn't tell anyone, and just posted a
I
picture
saw
like
that. Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
want to know what happens ultimately? Like,
Yeah, tell me. I was like probably 40 minutes in. The last thing I remember is, yeah, he like is trying to do his interview and then he just like gets rid of his phone and goes climb shit.
yeah. Did
And
you
then, yeah,
not like
like
that
post
part?
a
Oh, I
picture.
love that part where he was just like, I
No,
need to like check out from like all of reality. He was like, I become so focused and present, and like he talks about like after doing these big climbs, he's like just appreciates life so more and is just so present. And it sounded like it was like on par with like a psychedelic experience for him. Like,
for sure. So what ultimately happens?
so also quick tangent too is that this guy clear like I mean he just went on like apparently these like psychedelic like benders for a while. Like I feel like him
Yeah.
being unfazed by these climbs is like largely due to him like frying his brain from like all these drugs. But anyway, um yeah, he ends up trying to do another crazy climb and he GG's in
Hmm.
like an avalanche.
He's
And
dead?
yeah, he's dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The way
Oh
they framed the
shit.
movie, I was like, oh, they like he
He's
didn't
still
did he
alive,
run
like
for
an
a
Alex
day.
Honnold type of fucking character.
Yeah. But the way they frame the movie, you think like, oh, like he went missing for a day, like okay, like he's gonna be fine, like and like no, he's just completely GG. They didn't even find his body. Like, um, it's nuts.
Yeah,
But
fuck. Well,
yeah,
I think that makes you appreciate how like insane Alex Honnold is because he's doing these like insanely
crazy.
difficult and very dangerous things.
So he's in the movie like quite
Paul's
a
in the
bit,
movie,
and
yeah, yeah.
and he's like, you have these people who freestyle like him and Mark, and he's like, if they make the climb, like they're seen as these heroes, like super brave people, and then if they fall, they're these like daredevil, like insane people, but they're the same person. Just one has completed one the other, but it's the same mentality approaching these things. It's just like sometimes external circumstances, like determine the fate of how these things go. Um,
Yeah, dude,
yeah,
fuck. I
Alex
didn't know
Honnold
he
said it. He's
died.
like, this guy's a beast. Like he's like, this is.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't like that. If you got to that part, I felt like it was so interesting when he was like, I'm so in tune with nature and like I don't know. The rest, the part before, I didn't really like that part. I really liked, and then learning that he.
I don't know, dude. I think I went through a phase of like getting really into like climbing movies, which it sounds like you might be doing now. Like
I
I
did it
think you know why I
before,
went
and
through this. Yeah.
it
You
resurrected
just
like
came back.
when
Yeah.
because I went climbing. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. Like, and then I was like,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
know, something.
I think something happened for me, for better or for worse, where like I think I lost a lot of interest in things that aren't directly like practical or impactful for me, you know? And that's like recently, and you can make an argument that, you can watch this, you can get inspired, you'll get a different perspective on how to live your life. But I just didn't think the production quality was very good. But I think more than anything, I watched it. I was like, this guy and I have like so little in common in terms of our personality. Like,
For sure.
maybe it's wrong. I don't know.
I,
Because I used to not think that way. Like, I used to just be hype on like,
whatever.
yeah, like watching Meru or like watching Meru or watching like the Honnold documentary. Like that was sick. But I was like,
Sure.
I don't want to live this guy's life, you know?
For sure.
I
For sure.
think
I
I've
mean,
like,
I think leaving time for exploration though, like it's like a VC investment, right? You'll make like 20
mhm,
investments and like one will pay off
that's
everything. The
true.
rest are BS. And I think that's true.
Hmm.
Like, and this honestly, this is like the matcha mate thing I was talking about before. Like
Like, you think about it that way.
2 nights ago, I was just like done with things. I've like read and like studied all these things. Like I was like done. And I was like, it was only like 10. I was like, I had time. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to not look at my phone and I'm just going to like think on this problem. And I'm not going to do anything until like I've at least gotten like some decent idea. And like, whatever, it was just bullshitting, like random thing. And I was just thinking. And then like, it's like, you know what? I feel like this actually is a pretty good idea. And then just executed on it. And like having that time where like undirected and just like, I don't know, it allowed that to come. I don't know. So I think there is value in it, but I feel like if you don't enjoy it, then obviously don't do it. But I do think there's
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, I guess I didn't articulate that well because I do agree with that, and I do think I pursued that. I don't know. Maybe I don't really know. Yeah, I guess maybe the movie just wasn't that interesting to me because I was like,
yeah, I actually don't think it was very that like in terms of climbing movies or nature movie, like it wasn't
yeah,
that well made, but there were parts that I was
yeah.
like, it was pretty far.
I was like, this dude is sleeping in a fucking staircase, and he looks like he stinks.
Later.
Like, I'm
Bro, there
just
was a
like,
video. He's about to climb this massive mountain. He literally is just like in the middle of this like freezing place. He just put a sleeping bag on the floor, like nothing underneath him, no coverage,
yeah,
nothing, and it's like brick out. I'm like, this guy is just different. Like,
yeah, and like I think we look at those people like, damn, he's a beast, but like, no, there's something different about him. Like his brain is different. Whether it's the
whole
acid,
movie, I was
whether
like,
it's
this
something.
guy is a freak and has
Yeah,
fundamentally fried his brain from doing drugs, and
yeah,
that like has allowed him to like push these boundaries.
bro.
Like,
I
what do you
think that shit about Garrett, who's one of my best friends.
Sure.
I don't know who's gonna listen to this. I'm like, bro, what are you? You know, like, what are you doing? But it's interesting. Like, he genuinely does what he wants to do and doesn't give a fuck about anything
Yeah,
else, which is like, I think everyone has to find a way to be that way. Like,
being comfortable like
with their own thing.
ditching narratives, ditching society's narratives, I think is
Yeah,
like an invaluable skill to have. And I think like I don't know, that's what I liked about this. And yeah, Garrett, like it's like life becomes this adventure and not this like journey of 1,000 heroes, whatever. Like it's I don't know, it's just very different. And like I love that quote. I don't know, I forget if I wrote about it or not, but it was like, or actually it was in the Lion Tracker's book, and he's like, if you can see what the rest of your life is going to look like, you're on the wrong path. Like,
facts.
Like, yeah.
That's a fact. Tragic that this dude died.
I mean, the whole movie too, I was like, this guy is gonna get clapped. Like, you can't just keep doing these wild climbs. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Arnold said he's like this,
I mean,
like the TF interview. He's like, this guy is probably the most interesting climber like right now.
yeah. I feel like Honnold has just transitioned into like just like legend status where I mean, yeah, he's a fucking legend, you know? He has to be considered like one of the greatest living athletes or like one of the greatest athletes of all time. Like, I don't know how Honnold could not be in that conversation. It's also interesting.
People say that
like,
guy Adam-Andre or whatever is like actually the most talented climber, but Alex just does like crazy shit.
Who?
This guy Adam-Andre.
I don't know who that is.
He's like he looks mildly like Timothy Chalamet, and like he's just crazy. Like he does like literally the most nuts climbs. When we speak with Gary, like we gotta ask him his thoughts. But this guy's apparently like Alex Honnold literally is like Adam Andre is like levels above where I am, but like doesn't free solo or yeah, maybe.
Dude, this guy's shredded.
Yeah. I mean, they're all just like muscle.
They just honest, but the thing is, it's like climbers. You get the sense that they're kind of just like junkies, but they're junkies for this sport, you know. But they're like full on like drug addicts.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like
you look at like
surfers and same shit.
Yeah, like they all look like they don't shower. They like all like have no grooming. It's literally just like nothing matters. I just want to fucking climb, which is like pretty interesting. But this guy looks like if Timothy Chalamet fucked a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Like he dead looks like I don't know.
He has some
he
crazy
beast.
You gotta look up his like.
I'll look him up.
Like one where he does like I think it's the toughest rated climb in the world, and like he finesses it like multiple climbs.
His arms are fucking wild.
The thing about climbing that's interesting, right? Is like you can't be like I mean, I'm sure, but to be the best, like you have to be highly optimized for
It's functional.
like
Yeah.
every ounce of muscle you have is an ounce of muscle you have to carry up the fucking mountain or rock face.
Yeah.
So,
It's all like very optimized sort of body composition.
yeah. Did I ever tell you that book I really like? That this is one of those books that I think like hasn't gotten read a lot, but I think is good. It's called The Shark's Paintbrush.
Mm-mm. Is that the one about like modern art?
No, it's about biomimicry and like how like there's many things in society where we like mimic nature and like it has like huge impacts. So, like one example is like termite mounds. They're able to like termites dig out these like tunnels in their like massive mounds, and it allows like air to flow through the structure, and like it keeps it cool throughout the day because the ground is always cool but the air is hot. So whatever it provides, it's like a HVAC system for their mound. And like an architect was inspired by that and built this building in like Zimbabwe that mimics it, and like it's like 10 degrees cooler than like any other building, or 15 degrees cooler, and that translates to like a ton of money in savings in terms of heating. So this whole book is talking about different
beast.
Yeah. The whole book is just talking about different things. And like one thing is another one that's really cool is when they were designing the bullet train, when the bullet train would come out of a tunnel, it would like smack into this like wall of air basically, and it would create this like super loud sound. And so the engineers were like looking like, how the hell do we solve this? And they took inspiration from a kingfisher, which has like this optimized beak that like when it like dives into the water, it like causes like no turbulence and like allows it to like efficiently like hunt. And the front of bullet trains
That's
are mimicked
so
after them.
beast.
Yeah. But the whole book is all just like mind blowing shit like this. But one thing.
So did you audiobook it?
That one I think I did.
Does it need pictures? No, because I'm looking at it on Kindle and it says like e-textbook, which is usually not what they say. So I'm wondering, are like pictures very essential?
I don't
to the
think
book?
you really need. I'm pretty sure I audiobooked it. You don't like just the idea is cool. But this, I just covered like the 80-20 of it, but it was really cool and I really liked it.
I mean, it's a $2 book, so I'm down.
Oh, then
yeah.
One thing that it made me appreciate though is just how optimized different things are. Like
nature is.
Like take an annoying like housefly, right? Like its shell is like super lightweight and it's like the size of its stomach, and like the food it eats, and like all these things are like highly optimized for the life it's going to live. Like it doesn't have a massive stomach because then it can't like fly as easily and escape as easily. So it's like everything in nature, even as annoying as like a rat to something as beautiful as like whatever, like a peacock, like everything is like highly optimized through time and battle tested from reality to like optimize almost every aspect of it. And like it just made me appreciate like everything, basically, like every living being. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is like that's true for humans too, except we've engineered environments where all of those like optimizations are not being utilized to their sort of intended sort of, well, the way I would say it is like we evolved for 99% of our existence, probably even higher in terms of time, to like respond and like behave optimally under a certain like set of stressors environmentally, which we just don't have now. And it seems like one of the things that is honestly pretty well proven at this point is like the human organism is like a complex system when you look at like physical health, mental health, emotional health. And when you deprive us of those stressors, all things don't work as well.
Right.
You know, even like intelligence doesn't work as well unless you're like
getting challenged mentally.
Getting challenged physically. Like,
sure. That was like I sent you that tweet today. Did you see that one? Where it's like the concept of like human energy, like energy for a person.
I don't think
like
I saw this one yet.
Basically, it's like that's like not a good model for the body, because like the body adapts, and like if you're putting your body under stress, it responds. You grow muscles, you get like your respiration gets better, you're like you become smarter, and it's like that's just not a proper model, and that we thrive and improve. Like, and he basically says we're like anti-fragile when it comes to stress. Like our bodies are optimized for stressors and we become better. So like, we try to optimize shit to not have that, which is wrong.
That's definitely a fact when it comes to cold water. You getting the call?
Yeah, I'm on call.
Do you need to pick up?
I will need to address this.
Okay, we have like 5 minutes left. We can just call it, Billy, if you want.
Yeah, we might have to.
All right, bet.
But facts. Sorry, this was cut short.
No, you're good. You're good.
But I do need to run to fix this. But
Yeah, you're
thank you
good.
everyone for listening. And
Yeah, thank you, Garrett,
that's
for
a fun
listening.
episode.
And Mono and my parents, and I don't know on
Benny.
your side who listens. Benny listens.
Benny.
Does Marissa listen?
I think Marissa's listening to a few.
Tony listens?
Tony listens once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Tony.
Facts. So,
All right.
All right. Well, much love to all, and
Much love.
We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace. Okay, let me stop this recording now. Wait, where's the recording button? Feel free to dip also.
My bad. Yeah, I gotta dip this fucking on call. My phone. I had to set it to override so that like, no matter what my phone's